Welcome to the Software Process and Measurement Cast number 645. I'm Tom Cagley, your host. Today, the headlines of 3 April and 4 April about the Facebook security hack. You have 533 million reasons to take Paul Katzoff's message on data security to heart. Paul Katzoff. For almost a decade, Paul has worked with technology companies seeking manageable growth and brand loyalty expansion. His careers range from being an integral part of a new business startup team to becoming a key driver in the business, enabling it to become both sustainable and profitable. Currently, Paul serves as CEO of White Canyon Software, a data security firm used by 44 of the Fortune 100 companies. As a leader in data security industry, Paul would love to chat about how to mitigate any potential data breaches with work from home. Are you ready to talk data security? It's time for the interview. Paul Katzoff, welcome to the Software Process and Measurement Cast.
Thanks, Tom. Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
I am really looking forward to this conversation. Paul, you are in, I would suggest, a growth business, so to speak. A growth business getting rid of stuff, but that stuff is data.
Yes.
Before we dive into nuts and boltsy kind of questions that my listeners probably would love, why don't you remind us why this whole idea of data security and making sure stuff doesn't fall into the wrong hands is actually important?
First off, the knowledge of power of data is, we see that with the corporations as they go to sell, as they go to kind of move product, the more data they have, the lower cost it is on their marketing side. So there's an efficiency on that side, on the corporate side. For individuals, there's a lot of our data that's unique to us individually. And if it falls or into the wrong hands or is compromised, it's going to cause individuals a lot of headache, a lot of concerns with their credit score, fraudulent purchases, things like that. So data overall, data security is very important. It's only going to increase as the ability to use that data increases. Also, the effects of that and the value or the return from the hacking, if that continues to increase, we'll see it continue to become a bigger and bigger problem globally for every individual throughout the world.
So obviously that strikes all of us, right? Anywhere from being able to ransom our information to using it for fraudulent means, all of that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, I'm looking at my desk, which you can't see behind. It's behind the camera, and I've got about a half a dozen hard drives on the desk. I have about a half a dozen smart devices on the desk. I have 3 laptops over there. All of that stuff is just rife with information. Is the problem getting bigger just because there's more stuff? Or is the whole complexity of what we have to deal with in terms of data and securing it harder? Is it more complex?
There's 2 parts to it. One is it's easier to store more data. So we can take more pictures, take more videos, put it on a drive, and we can store every moment of our lives if we want to. Everything that's happened to us, every text conversation, every video, everything we want, we can save nowadays at a very low cost. So it's very insignificant to keep items. Okay. Second is the value of that data, the risk of it to ourselves. I think our knowledge is kind of growing where we're going, hey, do we want to have this go out there into the nether world? And if so, can I ever get it back? And what does it mean to me? How does it affect my career? How does it affect my personal life? What happens if a video gets out or a picture gets out there and I can never get it back? And so there's this kind of fear and understanding that once it leaves this controlled area that I have of, a quote unquote fence around, I'm not going to be able to get it back. And so there's a lot of caution a lot of kind of, I wouldn't say scared, but just kind of very worried feelings about data and it getting out there from these devices we all have. And a lot of us have old devices sitting around that we don't want to get rid of because we don't want that. We don't know if there's an old tax documents on there. We don't know what's on there. And B, we don't know if we want to keep it. And C, we don't want it to get out there and get lost. So it's a unique situation we're in right now. Something I don't think we've really seen before. This is kind of a new phase in data security.
It's funny that you mentioned that. I've traveled a lot in India and spent some time, going through places like Diwali and looking, as a slum where a lot of the e-waste ends up and watching people, paw through it. Now, I've sat in some of those shops for a few minutes and had a tea with people and watched them crush this stuff. So it's complex and it's complicated, it's complex, and there's a lot more of this stuff. Why can't we just programmatically take care of it versus what you do and the whole idea of wiping it?
Programmatically taking care of it. How so? Other than a software-based erasure?
Or a software-based erasure, or a level of encryption that just doesn't let it get broken. I talked to a person relatively recently that's in the midst of working on quantum level security.
Yeah, encryption. First off, is amazing. Encrypting your devices. I think every corporation does that now. But something we all know is that encryption at some point gets broken. You look at encryption back from 2010, 2011, we've progressed so far in our processing ability and processing power that we can hack, old Windows computers and old devices very simply, very easily. So encryption is great here and now, but I feel like there's a decay to it. Over time, it becomes weaker and weaker. And if the data on that device is no longer relevant after 4 or 5 years or 10 years, and then there is protection from it. But over time, if that data is social security numbers or other information that doesn't expire, you're going to have that. Yeah, you're at risk for having that data out there in the wild.
So there's obviously a market for data erasure. Data erasure more than just taking your old laptop and playing Fargo with it and running through a tree shredder, right?
Right.
So why is there a market for that? And again, shouldn't we as consumers and creators of data, business, personal level, shouldn't we have some mechanism to be able to deal with that ourselves?
I think we're getting there. I think over time we will. And I think products are sometimes, here to help us kind of get to that point. And I don't know when we'll get to that point with drives and media storage. But right now there's probably close to 150 million drives per year that are shredded, physically destroyed. Some of these devices are old, out of date. They're a 40 gigabyte hard drive, IDE. There's not much value there. There's not much storage. The power consumption is probably worth more than the device itself. But there's also data centers out there and high-end computers with NVMe drives, SSD drives, that because the data is on there and it's a risk to them, they want to shred it rather than wipe it. So we're trying to provide a software-based erasure solution that, A, they can trust, with certifications, verifications, proof, but also to give an alternative to this physical destruction. You have all this e-waste going out there. You have these microplastics going into the oceans and beaches. E-waste is a huge contributor from that part. And a lot of these physical destruction sites will say, well, we recycle most of the metal, most of the parts of these devices. Unfortunately, that's not entirely true. They get the rare metals out of there. They get the aluminum, the other parts. But there's quite a bit of every drive or every computer that will go into the landfill and it's just seen as waste, and hopefully it rusts and corrodes and disappears. But there is a need out there to provide an alternative for this. If we really want to get to a circular economy, if we really want to get to a place where devices aren't just shredded because we're worried about the information on them, and instead it's at the end of life where their use has gone, erasure kind of sits in that realm to allow those devices to leave your facility so that you can have that reassurance, proof, certificate of destruction that your data is gone. You can do the audits to make sure it is as well, that you trust that software that you're using.
What's a common scenario where erasure is the right answer and a software-based erasure is the correct answer?
There's quite a few different examples inside of a company for reallocating a device. Let's say you have an executive that had a laptop, you're going to reassign it to someone in your organization. You want to ensure that all the data is off that device. So you're going to wipe it clean. You're going to re-image it with your corporate image of whichever OS you want, and then you can reassign it and reallocate it. Anywhere where that data is very important or risky if it gets out is a need for it. Another one is when corporations with HIPAA liabilities or legal implications, these healthcare organizations, if your private health information gets out, there's a dollar fine attached to it. Sometimes it's around $50,000 per record, but it depends on the situation. So if you touch that device, regardless of who you are, if you're a secondhand processor, third-hand processor, an India corporation, whoever you are, if you touch that device and then the data gets out from that device and it has PHI on it, HIPAA is going to come after you. And this year alone, they've had over 100 plus data breaches where this has occurred. And there's fines attached with each of those data breaches. So there's a need on the regulation side to have proof of erasure, proof that the data is gone, so that if there is a vulnerable attack or a breach out there, you can say, no, our processes are secure. Let's find out where this data came from, but it's not from these systems. We've erased all of them.
Processes secure, and I'm sitting in my home office, and I haven't left my home office my commute has been very short since March. Let's put it that way. Nice. Is data security, this kind of securing and erasing data, harder now that we're living in a much more distributed world?
Well, the quick answer there is yes. And there's two parts of it, right? And there's two parts of it. One is the technology, right? There's a cat and mouse game going on. We have SSDs coming out. We have new chips on devices. We have all sorts of kind of technological advances to protect data on systems, okay? And so there's a cat and mouse game to be compatible with those devices to erase them, regardless of what they are, NVMe, fiber channel, you name it, to be able to access them and erase them securely and properly. The other part of it is the as you mentioned, the distributed workforce. Within 3 weeks, I would say 90% of office workers went remote, if not 100% went remote. And I would say only 60% of them had work laptops, I think is the number I got from someone. So you have 40% of your employees, start working from home. They need to access their corporate information, Excel sheets, docs, things like that. So you set up VPNs. They're all VPNing in. I can say VPNing. I don't know if that's a correct term or not, but they VPN in, and they're saving these files to their home computer. How secure is that home computer? How secure is that home network? Is there a password on that? Who has access to it? Who has access to their Wi-Fi? Corporations have spent millions, if not tens of millions of dollars to secure their networks. And all of a sudden, the remote workforce changed the possibility of data breaches and data access. And that's a headache that's being fixed or being focused on right now, but it could cause some serious issues with corporations.
So in terms of erasure then, when a company decides to, let's say I were to leave my company and as Joe Worker with data, good data, and I have it on my wonderful work laptop over here. I have, on occasion, sat in the family room in front of the TV with a glass of wine and used the home laptop to work on things at the same time. How do you erase all of that? And is that something that organizations can have algorithmically happen, or is that something that they just have to trust policy and say, well, you have to erase it, Joe?
Do they have the right to? Can you tell Joe he has to erase his home laptop? when he leaves your organization? Legally, do you have the ability to do that? Or is there a policy that you have as a corporation that allows you to access that computer, or request that computer be erased in a report or certificate of destruction sent to you? That hasn't been proven. And I don't think anyone's even tried to do that where it has been taken to court to be fought over. There are some major legal liabilities here. Phones as well. You open up your work email, you open up a PDF. Is that PDF saved in the temporary storage on your phone or your tablet? Who has access to that tablet? Do you have to erase it if it's yours? There's quite a bit here that corporations haven't spoken to, and their data security policies really need to kind of be updated to the current usage. And it does lag behind. I think the next year or two they'll catch up. But right now it's in that awful twilight area.
So if we catch up in a year from now, what'll the new thing be that causes all the headaches? Because life will be different. I mean, if nothing else, 2020 has proven that we are pretty good at adapting. At least in the agile world, it was said, we should all be co-located. And now even those people who have co-located tattooed somewhere on them, it said, they crossed out the co-located and said distributed whenever, right?
Right.
So
right.
We know we can do that. We secure that. It's got to be whack-a-mole, doesn't it? And how does a firm like yours that's involved in, cleaning up after this kind of a problem, how do you advance and take on that kind of a challenge?
It is definitely whack-a-mole. And I think you have to I hate to say that this way, but you have to keep your ear to the ground. Right now we're getting calls from school districts, and they're saying, hey, because of the CARES Act, we've gotten federal funding to provide one-to-one devices to our students. Okay. So we're going from 500 computers to 4,000. How do I process these come June? I'm going to have 4,000 devices put onto my desk. I'm going to have to reassign them in August. And I don't want a junior's Chromebook going to a first grader who knows what's on it. How do I protect the data on that? How do I make sure that we're not liable for images or other things that happen on there? And these 11th and 12th graders, they have a brother or sister in computer science in college that's going to go, oh, you got a Chromebook? You can't, they locked it down. Here, try this. And all of a sudden it's unlocked and they can do whatever they want on these programs.
I can tell you it isn't the kid in college that'll help them with that. That's called YouTube.
That's true. It's a new day nowadays. Everything's published and you can find out anything. So for us, it's keeping the ear to the ground. We hear rumblings and issues. Mobile devices hit the secondhand market like 2011, 2012. Not a day went by that we didn't get a call saying, hey, how do I erase an iPhone? How do I erase an Android? I have all these devices coming in, or these organizations are selling me devices. They want me to erase them. How do I do it? So for us, it is a cat and mouse game. That's what makes business and technology so much fun. Otherwise we'd just be digging holes every day, right? The enjoyable part is, next year it'll be different. 3 years from now, there'll be a different drive technology, hammers coming out. And some other, I don't know if they've really been proven, but there's new storage techniques. You're going to have larger drives, 500 terabytes. There's always going to be a new kind of hurdle to jump over, to fix. And that's what's so much fun about it.
So let's just pick on that mythical school district. What's the answer? I mean, do they have to erase and re-image everything?
The answer depends on the device, right? If you have a device that the manufacturer allows you to erase all of them easily, then that's great. If not, you need to get a third-party tool to do it. Or does your organization or school district say, hey, don't worry about it. These are thin clients. They can't store local files on there. And you leave the risk there that there is a local file that a parent walks by their second grader's computer and stops in shock and gives a call saying, hey, this is what I saw. The other part of it is the diagnostics part of the testing part of these devices. you're going to get these 4,000 computers on your desk. And what if keys are broken? What if USB ports are shot? These devices aren't treated nicely, and you go and reassign them, and then they're broken. They got to get sent back to you. You got to fix them, reassign them. There's a lot more to this than just wiping or just getting these devices processed. There's a lot of fixing, repairing. It is going to be a nightmare. And I just talked to a school district this morning, 50,000 students, 16,000 teachers. I mean, how many techs do you think it would take to manually test 50,000 Chromebooks? And how long would that take? You have 3 months. You literally have a receiving time, and a deadline for it to go back in.
Yeah, assuming you have no summer school or anything else going on.
Oh yeah, you have other things.
Or winter days that get, well, I guess with the kids working and going to school from home, there is no such thing as a snow day anymore.
Oh yeah. Is every day a snow day if you have school from home?
God, I hope not. Good Lord. Obviously, when it comes to this cybersecurity, data security stuff, places like NIST get involved. There's the new maturity model for security. Are these part of the solution? Are these helpful? What's the general reaction in the real world?
I think the realization is there needs to be knowledge and information put out on how to handle all types of data. So the CMMC, which I think you're referring to, talks about unclassified data. So classified data has already been reviewed and talked about by NIST and a bunch of other organizations. Unclassified data is the next area. Is there unclassified data out there in the government, federal government, that should be managed or controlled? And if so, how do you do that? And that's where this comes from, is kind of reviewing those standards and not imposing, but recommending certain steps and processes depending on that data and that media storage. And that's what all these federal government NIST publications, these are all recommendations. There's no NIST certification. There's no NRAR certification, anything like that. You can be compliant or not compliant. That's as far as it goes. And I hope in the future there does reach a level of, I think, higher accountability would be nice. I think each agency is accountable within itself, but I think there needs to be kind of a more than a recommendation, I think, at some point.
Does that help or hurt business to have either a recommendation or some sort of overall policy and law?
Right. Well, business aside, what's best for the data? Business is here to help organizations manage data if they're not able to do it themselves. It may help improve our business. Maybe it helps or drives the manufacturers, all the different players involved in the supply chain, to work on a efficient and sufficient solution so that devices and data can be securely erased quickly and easily. I think that's the overall picture of it. Is it's not being managed properly because no one really wants to take responsibility for it. Windows, they had their recycle bin there for years where you would delete it or empty the recycle bin and you thought, oh, it's gone. Well, you do a little data recovery and there's your pictures and videos. You didn't know that. You had that warm fuzzy that it was gone because the trash can was empty, but it was still there. Microsoft didn't want to assume that responsibility that your data was gone. Everyone's kind of stepped aside from that because of, maybe the risk or maybe the concern of proof that it did get out or did not get out. Who knows what the situation is? And that's where third-party providers have stepped up and said, you know what, we've taken a look at this. We can accept that risk for, X amount of revenue. This is what we're going to do. This is how our solutions work. And we go down the roads of certifications and audits and all those kind of things to kind of prove out our solution and the trust we have in your market. And then from there, that's business. Now, if that gets removed because of a manufacturer update or a new policy going across all the, supply chain, that's business. But as long as the data gets handled properly and disposed of correctly, I think that's the most important part.
Fair. I actually would assume that in the end, a stronger overall standard and policy would probably make it more important for businesses like yours versus having people like Apple and Microsoft and Amazon and all the rest of the manufacturers come up with their own solution to that. But forecasting is forecasting kind of thing.
Yeah.
Paul, this has been marvelous. This has been fun. If you woke up tomorrow morning, somebody handed you your morning beverage of choice, a magic wand, and said you had 2 wishes that would allow you to change anything as it affected data security, what would those be and why?
I think the first one is knowledge. I think a lot of people feel their data is safe and they don't realize the exposure or vulnerability of their data. And I think they're in a kind of a false sense of security. So having that knowledge of where their data is exposed. And 2, I think the best thing would be repercussions for hackers and organizations that don't do a good job of protecting your data. I think there's not enough penalties out there to drive these corporations that have all your information. Let's be honest, they have everything about you, your credit card details, your last purchases, everything about you is out there. And they need to be held to a high standard and feel the need to make sure that your data is protected properly because it's such a huge penalty. I think if those 2 things happen, we will see data security reach a new level, and that's protection for every consumer, US or globally. That'd be the best, I'd imagine.
I think that's fair. And having had my data pilfered more than once, including a federal one, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's always fun when you get a note that says, when you were getting that security clearance, we lost all of that stuff. Well, didn't lose it. They know where it went. Got scraped. Oh, well, at this point, people would probably want to be able to understand how they could reach out, continue the conversation, find out more about you, say, hey, Paul, help us. How would they go about doing that?
Sure. Visit our website, wipedrive.com is our website. Feel free to tweet me at Paul Katzoff, Katzoff. Also, our company tweet at White Canyon, Twitter account at White Canyon. Go ahead and reach out to that as well. We're happy to help you. We do this day in, day out. We have 23 of the Fortune 50, 44 of the Fortune 100 use us. We know what you guys deal with. We know what you work with. We understand the technology. We've been doing this for 22 years. You're coming to the right place when you talk to us. So if you have any concerns, any questions, please give us a call. We'll be happy to help you.
Super. I'll have that contact information in the show notes. Also, at this point, I open up the platform for you to promote anything you'd like. The podcast is about 14 years old, so selling your car on eBay, not the right answer. But other than that, it's wide open.
I don't want to sell that.
Well, good. Don't sell the car.
Real quick, with our products, Wipe Drive, we have a diagnostic tool, Detalis. We have a system saver tool that keeps your Windows system intact. So if you're giving your laptop to your grandson, you don't want to go through the headache of reinstalling Windows, we have a tool for you. We're sitting in this space. We love data security. We love talking about it. We wish it wasn't such a big issue, but we think it's going to continue to be a big issue. So please reach out to us on our website. We have a Wipe Drive Home right now for free. There's a code there that you type in. You get $19.95 off, and you can download our software and use it on one computer at no charge. So go for it. Knock yourself out.
Wicked, wicked, wicked. Paul, thank you very much for educating the Software Process and SPaMCAST listeners. And, I'm sure hopefully they will reach out and say hello.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Appreciate the time to be with you. Appreciate the chance to be in front of your listeners, and let's do this again.
The Software Process and SPaMCAST is the proud media sponsor of both the Global Scrum Master Summit, the week of May 17th. Link in the show notes. Get out, get a ticket. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the chat. And the DevOps Online Summit coming April 26th through 30th. Link in the show notes to grab a ticket. Let them know that we sent you. Both are really great events. I'm looking forward to being there and being educated. I hope you are too. In Reread Saturday News, Chapter 8 in Fixing Your Scrum Practical Solutions to Common Scrum Problems by Ripley and Todd Miller tackle management. The gap between labor and management is an age-old problem. I'm sure the artisans and workers that constructed the pyramids have their own version of Dilbert. The focus on the team, a core tenet of Agile and Scrum, is perceived as exacerbating the management versus worker dichotomy. By identifying anti-patterns and proposing approaches to solving these issues, this chapter is useful for bridging the gap. In the Software Process and Measurement Cast number 646, we'll focus on discussing the impact of strong off-premises infrastructure on the delivery of value and the impact of the bottom line and mitigating risk. If process improvement is a never-ending journey, why do so many people ask, are we there yet?